Hello, this is Jason Hart, and it's Info Time at the Apollo. I'm here with Deaton and Deaton Counseling and Associates, and if everyone could please introduce themselves, starting over here.
I'm Melissa Deaton.
Okay.
I'm Mark Deaton.
Rebecca Dio.
Okay, and tell us, how long has your business been here in Frankfurt?
We officially, well, we're having an open house today, but we have been officially in operation. Oh gosh, I guess it's been about, Melissa's been doing it for about maybe a year. Because it started small, client here, client there. And then Rebecca started maybe 3-4 months ago into it full time, and then I just came on board full time.
And what do you guys do?
We do pretty much every type of mental health therapy. We work with substance abuse, or some people don't like that term, whether you call it addiction or substance use disorder. We work with anything that is chemically dependent. We have intensive outpatient groups and individual sessions for that. We work with depression, anxiety, psychotic disorders like schizophrenia. Melissa and Rebecca work more with kids than I do. I don't work with any children under the age of 12. They do, so they work more with anyone on the autism spectrum.
Oh, great.
We work with ADHD, bipolar disorders, personality disorders, pretty much anything in the mental health field, including substance use. We work with all of it.
Okay, and why did you guys start your business? What's your why? Why here in Frankfurt?
Well, I think the why, we didn't actually start in Frankfurt. We started in a little office in Lexington, and I actually still have that. I'm the only one who sees clients there, and kind of from where I started about a year ago. Yeah, it's been about a year ago. We just had that office there. We decided to start the one in Frankfurt, and it was actually December that we started that office because...
December 2018?
Yes.
Okay.
We started in Frankfurt particularly because he had such a connection with community members, and he kind of is from Frankfurt, and so I think giving back to the Frankfurt community is important. We have children that go to school here. And so just those connections and that client base we kind of already had going was why we went to Frankfurt. Now, why we went on our own, maybe different for each of us personally. As I graduated from school, it's just kind of one of those things that I always knew I would do. When I was going through school, I just knew I'd be in private practice. In part because of the exposure I had to other people who worked in this field, and I have a really high standard of ethics, and it's hard to keep those ethics when you work for companies that are maybe more about the bottom line.
Sure. Yeah.
So they might have different reasons why they went into private practice.
And where are you guys located? You've got an open house today. What's your address here in Frankfurt in case people want to swing by to the open house?
1030 Burlington Lane, Suite 5.
Okay. All right. Is your why different? Like, why do you do?
Well, honestly, I got in the field of substance abuse a long time ago. It's been several years. And I'm a targeted case manager as well. And what that means is basically I help people find their resources to fulfill their basic needs: housing, employment, child care assistance, transportation, anything that fulfills those basic needs to make recovery more successful. And that's honestly what I'm really passionate about. I was a single mom for a little while, and I needed resources. People gave me resources. I'm just trying to give to people that need.
That's excellent. Do you guys, in your business, have you noticed, are things getting worse with substance abuse issues, or are they getting better? Where are we on this?
I think that they're I don't know if I want to say steadily, because sometimes it peaks, it gets pretty significant. I think they're getting worse. I don't know that in industry as a whole, I don't know that we've really made a dent in it, because the new things keep popping up. If you go back a few years, heroin turned into heroin and fentanyl, then turned into heroin and carfentanil, then turned into the 3, then it turned into federal reports of fentanyl being found in every drug that was on the street, including marijuana, then found in the designer drugs, and then heroin. There's always been this heroin spike, and then this methamphetamine spike, and then the 2 speedballing, using the 2 together, methamphetamine production going up when you get in the eastern part of the state. It seems like when one area is like, oh, this seems like it might be stabilized, another area goes up. And it's actually, the whole thing is just kind of circular. It's all related. When you look at it like that, which kind of the reports that just came out support that. In 2000, I believe it was 2000, I want to say 16, the reports on 2016 or 2017, I can't remember exactly, were that the overdose deaths, as the total number of overdose deaths in the country, had surpassed the combined total of deaths in Vietnam, the Iraq, and Desert Storm wars.
You're touching on something that's interesting. Are you guys seeing more veterans coming to you for help? We've got a lot of people coming back from the Iraq War and various other, Afghanistan and stuff like that now. They're coming to the system. I saw some numbers just for criminal defense that about half of my clients were anticipated to be veterans by 2020. Are you guys seeing more veterans come in for assistance, or?
We have not seen a spike in veterans coming into us. I have heard of an increase in veterans that are actually seeking treatment with the VA.
With the VA, yeah.
Because if you go back 8 years or so, they wouldn't even seek treatment from the VA at the time because it was very, I don't want to talk about this, I don't want to admit this.
Well, it might discharge them. They might.
Yeah.
Well, I recently read an article, I think, where the president signed that a new, whatever it is, that they can seek care outside the VA.
Yeah.
So that may actually drive up the opportunities for us to give help to people. I hope, anyway.
You seem to be in kind of an evolving field, because it seems like this is becoming more and more, I think the general public's becoming more and more interested in substance abuse, mental health care, and all of that, and it seems to be tied together. How do you guys balance the counseling mental health component with the substance abuse counseling?
Well, we don't do the old school method on that, because it used to be if you came in with a dual diagnosis, and let's say I've got a heroin use disorder and I have an anxiety disorder, then the old school method was you always treat the drug disorder first and then you deal with the other. And just time showed us that you don't do that, because while this over here is still raging, how am I going to stay sober with not knowing how to deal with this? So we treat both together. And depending on what it is that the person comes in suffering from, it may be detox, it may be rehab, it may be we're seeing them in our groups 3 times a week, or we're seeing them individually once or twice a week. But we're trying to we do referrals to rehabilitation centers, to regular general practice physicians, whatever it is, to work with the client to get them at least stabilized. Yeah. In all areas, and then start talking about, trying to find the root. What is it that's going on? What is it? Where did this come from? How can we help this so you don't go back into that?
Do you seem to have more clients when the economy is not doing so well, or is it just pretty steady all the time? In your opinion?
Well, it is a business that fluctuates, always has fluctuated up and down throughout the year. When the economy's not doing so well, if the economy's not doing well, we see an increase in clients. But honestly, when the holidays have passed, we see an increase in clients. When the seasons change, we see an increase in clients. And you can almost, set your clock by that. Any major fluctuation in any area, get a month or 2 past that, you see an increase in clients.
And there's also a difference in whether or not the clients are coming for mental health alone or substance abuse. because summer months help with depression and whatnot, and it's really some of it's basic biological. Like the sun gives you vitamin D, and that helps with chemical processes and just getting out of the house. Like, so mental health traditionally, and you could track it for years, has always gotten better in the sense of people are feeling better in the summer, and then our clientele goes down a little bit. But the substance abuse, and particularly the court order stuff, might go up a little bit in the summer because people are out more and maybe making not the best decisions.
Right. Yeah, because when it's colder out, people don't want to leave their house as much.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's dark and it's gloomy.
The court order aspect of it, do you guys get just anything court order, drug court, just DUIs, lots of DUIs, yeah.
And even mental health assessments from like DCBS offices and whatnot, parenting assessments, parenting classes, some anger management.
That is one thing that I've been impressed with from DCBS and from the drug court people, is that they will reach out to us on something that's not court ordered related, and say something like, hey, we've got this client, he or she doesn't seem to be doing so well, could we set up an appointment with you guys to see them? And that, I love that they're that concerned with who's coming in to see them.
And even with like family stuff, we've gotten some stuff there that's not court ordered per se, but hey, we see this need.
I really like the preventative stuff, because when it's in court, it's kind of, the situation's pretty bad by the time you're in court, because then you've already been processed, and that process takes a while, and then now you're being court ordered to get treatment. It's like, well, this would have been a lot more helpful earlier on. And anything like that really interests me personally, just seeing it in the work that I get, because I often get people that have had substance abuse issues their whole lives almost. I mean, it's just been generational to a degree. So you guys do referrals to long-term treatment. Is that mostly in-state?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, what we refer to is mostly in-state, yeah.
And drug court's a specialty court program through the Administrative Office of the Court. Have you heard about the mental health court in Lexington, the specialty court there?
Yes.
Have you had an interaction?
I have. I've known a couple of people that I have worked with in the past that have been involved with that.
Several attorneys I know in town have been talking about maybe petitioning the court for a mental health court in Frankfurt, which I think would be great, because we have a lot of clients that I find can't do the long-term treatment because they've got mental health issues and they won't take them. So they're falling through the cracks, and they'll literally walk by my office from the men's shelter or just from out in the street, and I'm just waiting for them to get picked up on something because they're not taking their meds. They're not doing what they're supposed to do. And is that something you guys would be willing to work with if Frankfurt started a mental health court?
Yeah,
Definitely.
definitely. Yeah, I'm all for it.
Okay. Would you guys be willing to assist in the forming of a mental health court?
Absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Hello.
Zoom. Okay, Chelsea's coming in for the interview now. Here's Chelsea Fitzpatrick.
Hello.
We were talking about mental health courts being a possibility in Frankfurt as a specialty court. We already have a good drug court program running here. What organizations or entities in Frankfurt do you guys find yourselves working with the most? Is it the court? Is it
Probably drug court or DCBS.
Drug court and DCBS the most. Yeah.
DPS, it's mostly for the family counseling and whatever counseling, the assessments, I assume.
The assessments.
Explain the assessment to our viewers. Like, what do you guys normally do for assessments? How does that work?
Well, it depends on, so there are multiple types of assessments. So there's parenting assessments, there's mental health assessments, there's substance abuse assessments, and then anger management assessments. Am I missing any?
The domestic violence assessments, they're a little bit different than anger management, but
Yeah.
And so we each have a little bit different credentialing. So some of the assessments have to have, like, they are both DUI assessors, so they can assess for DUI clientele. I cannot assess for those because I haven't gone through the training for that.
Sure.
But mental health, parenting, And substance abuse, I can assess for all of those. But each assessment has a different format we use. So mental health is a cross-cut, like it asks various questions from each DSM kind of thing, kind of hitting on everyone. And it's really just a tool that helps us see where do we need to dig deeper.
Okay.
Like where do I need to do a more particular assessment, like maybe a depression assessment or an anxiety assessment.
Are these flat fees for the assessment? Are they sliding scales? How does it work?
Well, it depends on, we take insurance, we're credentialed with all insurance companies, well, all the major ones, Medicaid and Anthem, Blue Cross Blue Shield. And then if they don't, we do provide a sliding fee scale, and that's really for all of our services. One of the things where I was talking about my ethics, I have a general standard of I don't deny people because of money.
That's wonderful.
Awesome.
And so I work with people where they're at. And then
I think we all take on pro bono cases.
We do.
All of us, you know, if we see that there's a definite need and there is not a financial stability on their end that they can afford it, we do have spots open. So
Great.
Yeah,
we don't like
that's
turning
awesome.
people away that need help.
No.
Definitely.
And I've seen too many cases over the time that I've been involved in this field. I've seen too many where they were taken on with insurance, and for whatever reason, insurance lapsed or stopped paying, and then it's like, all right, you got to go, and I'm not willing to do that.
Yeah.
You know, so right now we just like with the pro bono, we find room. You know, we're not going to stop treating you because this happened, but we find room.
That's amazing.
I'm this year's board president of the Sunshine Center. So domestic violence, anger management, all that stuff kind of hits home for me. Do you guys do victim counseling as well for domestic violence? Okay. I often get referrals from Greenhouse 17 and places like that to do
Yeah,
that.
that's
So-
an excellent.
I've actually
So-
networked with Greenhouse 17 quite a bit in the past as far as getting victims the resources that they need in order to make that successful departure of whatever situation that they're in. So a lot of times with victims of domestic violence, you're looking at no financial stability, no transportation, a lot of times very limited network of people.
Yeah.
And so I gather resources in order to get people to what they need in order to make a successful transition out of a really negative experience.
Well, I really, my 1997 Ford Ranger is used to pick up a lot of folks' stuff that end up at the safe house or just if the Sunshine Center needs it. I don't mind lending that out. It's kind of my spare, and things like that I think go a long way. So I really appreciate everything you guys are doing. What's your favorite part about your job? And I guess we'll start over here. Like, what do you like the
I
most?
think that's all I've been talking about, helping people.
Yeah.
You know, honestly, excuse me, that's something that I felt ever since I was a little kid is I just need to help people, right? And so growing up and getting into this field in general, I like to be able to encourage people to have their own autonomy to help themselves, get people hooked up with resources that they can use, and teach people how to find these resources as well. So they don't depend on anybody else. They can make their own decisions and they can be successful in their own idea of what success is, if that makes sense.
Great. Yeah.
Same question.
The favorite part for me is when I see that moment where they get it, whatever it is, regardless what we're working on, when it's apparent that they recognize what's going on and all of a sudden they got hope, even if it's just a little bit of hope. That's what I live for,
Yeah.
to see that. And you know, there's more cases where you don't see it than you do, but when I see that and it's like, oh my God, here we are. I can make it, or maybe I can make it. Just get through the day. Yeah, that's why I do it. I love it.
Same question.
I feel advantaged since I have
Yeah, you're right at the end. It's unfortunate.
I think my favorite part of my job is when I'm with a client and we're emotionally attuned. And so one of the things I've always said is a therapeutic alliance is a relationship between a counselor and a client. And a lot of my clients, because I deal with a lot more mental health, a lot of my clients have never been heard and they've never been emotionally connected with anyone. And so in those moments, that's when I can make the biggest change, where I can empower them to make the biggest change, because they have to do the hard work. But through the connection, they recognize they're not alone in the hard work, and that in itself is empowering to them.
What do you think we could do, as in the royal we for Frankfurt? What could we do to make Frankfurt a better place for substance abuse, mental health issues?
I think in part is, that's a big question. Yeah, we're supposed to start down there.
Okay, let's start over here.
Okay, so May is Mental Health Awareness Month, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, honestly, the one thing that pops into my head every time I even start to think about that question is ending stigma of, oh my gosh, this person is crazy.
Yeah.
No, this person has some legitimate problems that they need help with. And they can't, a lot of times a person with a mental health issue doesn't recognize it, doesn't know how to change what's going on with them. So honestly, like Frankfurt as a whole, let's just start talking. Let's start opening the dialogue of what people need in order to change what they need to. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense.
Okay.
And that's kind of why we're doing this. Okay, anything else you guys can think that Frankfurt could be doing to make,
Well, I am one that I'm more of a micro understanding, and so I'm an individual to individual.
Sure.
And so I honestly think a lot of change happens at home and in our interactions every day. And really just being more aware of what people around us are going through and how I can be kinder and listening to what they're experiencing. Does that make sense? So if someone I'm in relationship with, whether it be at work, whether it be at home, has some anxiety, has some depression, not judging them and listening and being there for them, and also kind of knowing my limitations, referring out, like, hey, it sounds like you're having a hard time. Why don't you, I've had to get help for things before, and really breaking down that stigma of getting help. Because it is something we shame a lot. And most of my clients actually shame themselves a lot. So if we could just take the shame out of it and just be like, this is just a thing that some people have to deal with, and empowering them to be able to get their help.
Some of us in the community watched a video on resilience, and it talked about toxic stress in childhood, trauma, and all of that. Do you think if we address things earlier, that would help kind of save you on the later end adult issues? Okay.
Yes, I definitely agree with that.
Okay.
I honestly have had thoughts of getting more mental health clinicians in the school atmosphere, especially in transitions, like 6th grade, 9th grade.
Yeah.
To help kids recognize, this is not appropriate, or this is, or, bullying issues, suicide, substance use goes a lot deeper than I think a lot of people even want to think about in schools. Recently read an article about middle schoolers taking methamphetamine to school here in Kentucky. So it is happening.
Yeah.
We need to address it a little more than just, hey, it's happening, those are bad kids. No, we need to get in there and help. I think if these issues are addressed in school, like where the kids are going every day anyway, it's going to prevent a lot of long-term problems in the future. And that's partially why I work with kids now. I didn't think I would want to, but I absolutely love it now.
I think in this, it seems to be we have to stay ahead of the curve, right? Because it's always evolving. Even with my own practice, I noticed it was pills about 8-9 years ago. That's mostly what I saw, a lot of pill cases. Now it's, here in Frankfurt, it's meth and it's heroin, and it's the evolving types of those two. Marijuana legalization is something that's been talked about. It's been talked about in Kentucky. Do you see marijuana being a major contributor to substance abuse issues and mental health issues, or do you see, if it was legalized, would it cause a lot of problems, I guess is what I'm trying to ask, in your opinion. It's a hot topic. And you don't have to answer it if you don't want. I just thought I would touch on it. It seemed relevant.
That's okay. I'll talk on it for a second if you want.
I was gonna say he's got a lot more experience. and
Whatever you feel
opinions
comfortable
about
saying.
it, but I don't know. I don't want to put him on the spot either.
Well, no, I'm, one of my trademarks is whether it gets me in trouble or not, I'm honest. I'm honest with the
Sure.
people. I'm honest with the facilities we work with. I'm honest with my clients. I'm honest because I know what works. Okay, I don't mean that egotistical. I mean from my own experience and what I've done over the years with others, I know what works. If it was legalized, would it cause more problems? Honestly, my opinion and the opinions of different clients that I've talked with and friends over the years, I don't expect it to be a big difference.
Okay.
There's always going to be a market because there's always going to be somebody that does not fit the requirements that the state would set on it, just like alcohol. There's always going to be somebody under 21.
Yeah.
With alcohol. There's always going to be somebody, well, I'm driving, I'm not supposed to be drinking, I'm working, I'm not supposed to be drinking, whatever. There's always going to be somebody that doesn't fit the requirements, so there's always going to be a market for those people. As far as its use of affecting, I would imagine like anything else, when the nuance hits, yeah, you're going to see a rise in some things, in some legal areas and some moral areas, and then as people become used to it, that will probably level out like it does with anything else on that scale. The biggest thing that seems to catch people on marijuana, with what I experienced, is the after the fact. They get tested for whatever reason, they get tested 2 days, a week after they've used, and they test positive.
Yeah.
And then that hems them up
Yeah.
at that point. But as far as it affecting anything like we see other drugs affecting, I don't think there'll be a big change in marijuana itself.
I can tell you from a domestic violence standpoint, from what I've seen, the people with anger issues coming in and creating these domestic violence cases, it's not the marijuana smokers doing it, it's alcohol mostly is what I see. And I think the judges have said the same thing here in Frankfurt, like they don't get, assault cases, domestic violence cases with marijuana smokers, they just don't see them. That's interesting, and I appreciate your opinion on that. I think that's great. Thank you for sharing. What's your phone number in case people want to reach out and contact you?
Well, we have, I use my cell phone for everything.
Okay.
We each have our own personal numbers.
Okay.
But it's easier for me to use that one because otherwise it gets confusing. Mine is 502-803-7445.
And if anybody else wants to share their contact information, you can. Just so folks know how to reach you and contact.
Well, mine is 859-567-0200.
Okay.
Yeah, I did just do that.
I'm sitting here thinking of the numbers, 859-379-5215.
Okay. And if folks need to email you or want to contact you and try to set up an appointment or services, what would they email?
Well, my email is melissa.deaton@deaton&deaton.counselingservices.com. But you could also, they could easily just Google Deaton and Deaton Counseling.
And
We have a
find you.
website. And
Excellent. Okay.
Also Psychology Today.
Yeah.
Melissa and I both are on Psychology
He's-
Today.
He's
wow.
almost on psychology.
I'm almost on. I haven't
Sure.
I'm almost there.
Is there anything else you want to add? Anything I forgot to ask?
I think one thing that I really like about the way we've set up our practices is that really everything short of residential can be serviced with our practice, because we have the children covered, we have target case management covered, we substance abuse, mental health, and I actually have a unique background in that I have a biblical studies degree. So I get a lot of my clientele are people seeking Christian counseling,
Sure.
or faith-based. It doesn't have to be traditional Christian, but there's a lot of different faiths, and I think that it gets neglected from being able to take it from have a legitimate mental health understanding and the faith understanding coming together.
Touched on an interesting point. As far as demographics, is there a specific demographic you're seeing more of, increasing numbers of?
Are concerned
Minority?
Are you talking about with that
Mm.
incorporating the faith-based and mental
Faith-based,
health,
any of
or-
that? Who's your growing clientele? Would be a better way to ask that question. If you
We've given a whole lot of kids referred to us by DCBS lately.
That is true.
Because I don't know, it feels like Frankfurt is kind of limited in their services for kids.
yeah.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I do see that a little bit. We're getting more of those.
As far as referrals, yes. As far as people who reach out, most of my clients actually do reach out to me because I offer Christian counseling services. And so but it's a wide range from, I've got college kids of different ethnic backgrounds. I've got people elderly trying to deal with life transitions,
Sure.
as they're getting older. And then some younger ones, adolescents.
I know it's kind of seasonal. I know with the DUIs, right after the new year, I get slammed too. So I understand. Okay, well, that's all I've got. Thank you for coming, and
Thank you for the opportunity.
that'll wrap up our episode.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks.